Hello, hello. Bl'Artagnan here with another Dullahan fight, but not the Dullahan fight. This is a new Dullahan fight, Dullahan 2. Dullahan? I don't know. This is the Abyss Perfectum Lufenia for the newest tier. And I'm sure we're all real excited to see this Joker again. Humorously, I guess, you know, a lot of people are enjoying the fact that they've removed the Yuffie cheese, which is probably for the best because, you know, that was a bit goofy. But I'm kind of frustrated because I think this boss in general is just kind of cancerous. I'll probably go into that a little later once we kind of hit a steady rhythm and you don't need me narrating what's going on. But this is actually going to be the same basic strategy we used in the last two attempts I made on this guy. Because I find this guy really frustrating to fight and got tired of trying to come up with strategies to beat him. I know Eldnarsh works really well, but he's kind of touchy to play. You can do goofy stuff with Terra, with Lightning, etc, etc. Kafka actually works in this stage too, since he, like Squall, has a buff extension on his EX. So you could actually do the same thing I'm doing here, which is using Rydia and Selphie's call abilities to give Squall perpetual uptime on the Rydia call water buff, which is what you need to manage the orb here. That is water damage. Beyond that, the game plan is going to be to try to bring the boss below 79% health before that recharge gauge fills. You can see we have Diablos here to give us bonus elemental damage. We have Light. The boss is not weak to water in this form. Doesn't absorb ice, but isn't weak to water, meaning I had to bring Raijin to fill that weakness gap once the Rydia imperil falls off. I'm bursting super early here because I want to, again, I wanted to push him below 79% before he filled that recast gauge. And an option could have been to actually just eat the recast and, you know, bring him down kind of organically. But I just didn't really want to, honestly. The thing about this boss, I think I figured it out. I figured out what about this boss irritates me. And it's the feeling that he cuts off so many angles of enjoyment for this game. Compared to a lot of bosses have, you know, they'll cut off an angle or two of enjoyment. You know, you like debuffing enemies, they cleanse or they're immune. You like having strong buffed characters, they dispel you. You like, you know, delaying turns or turn manipulation, they can't be delayed. Okay. You like break manipulation and like kind of, you know, re-breaks and cool stuff like that. They can't be delayed by break. Okay, that's fine. You like taking turns. Sorry, screw you. You can't take turns if I'm going to freeze you for 5 turns. And all those things together, I guess the way I'd sum it up is, for a boss who only has 2 arms and 10 digits, it's amazing how many of them are middle fingers. Anyway, that's enough ranting. Kind of tired of this guy. So, the gist here is basically, we're going to be trying to keep HP Silencer paralyzed on this guy because once he hits 79%, if his recast bar isn't fully charged, he queues up Northern Cross, the big freeze attack that ruins your day. It's an HP attack, and this means that Arciela can keep him permanently silenced. In previous runs, I brought a more potent support, you know, Paladin Cecil or something like that, who brings more damage than Raijin. Raijin, again, is here for the spear requirement, because you need black, and you need a spear, selling that Mog. Luckily, Raijin counts as a spear user, and still has great utility here. Yet he has, you know, his damage isn't amazing, and his auras, while solid for what he is, are nothing up to modern standards. That said, he brings regen to get past the recast at the beginning of the fight. He brings that imperil, and he brings paralyze, which is great because that means that on occasion you're going to see me let Arciela, you know, basically it backs Arciela up, which is kind of essential, at least, you know, with this team comp, because you'll see by the end of the fight, Arciela is going to run out of HP silences. And the only reason we got as far as we did is because Raijin is going to provide some bridge paralyzes to get us to let her do things like refresh or, you know, regain uses of her HP silence from her LD, or just use her EX so that she doesn't have to just spam skills. Meanwhile, Squall, as I mentioned in the previous runs of this, he's pretty much exclusively going to be using solid barrel or his LD if needed. And not really touching Renzokuken for most of the fight. I did early in the fight before this, you know, the call setup was finished, But the reasoning there is Renzokuken has faster turn rate than the other skills, and can actually result in the EX not being charged in one skill use. And we want to make sure that Aura doesn't fall off, because if Aura falls off, then he's no longer getting to use his EX every other turn, and if he's not using his EX every other turn, he can't perpetuate the Rydia call buff that's on him. It's actually a funny bit of tech, because I know a lot of people thought that the Rydia buff, or Rydia call, was going to be, a call, similar to like the Cryo call or something, where it's the little under the character number, but it actually puts the buff on each of the units, which is a good and a bad thing, If we put that call on Raijin, probably half the fight would have been spent water enchanted because he's so slow. But because it's an actual buff, we got to put it on Squall, and he gets to carry it the entire fight, which is awesome. So there I got a little cocky and ended up using a Renzokuken there anyway. Truthfully, mostly out of boredom. I actually remember this moment. I was getting tired of hitting him. I spent all weekend trying to use different teams in this duel hand. I was trying to get X-Death through, and I'm convinced if I really tried, I could probably get a team of X-Death, Aerith, and Eldnarsh through, but I don't have that kind of interest. It's not worth it to me, which sucks. Honestly, I feel like this boss has kind of drained a lot of the joy out of this game for me, for the reasons I illustrated. Basically everything I enjoy about the game, he says, no, you can't do that. But anyway, back from the whining once again. We are continuing to hit him as hard as we can, spamming the Squall EX. It's actually funny, when I posted this team in the Discord, the first comment I got was, why did you bring Squall to a single target fight? And it turns out that if you enchant him and you give him the Selphie call so that he gets the permanent EX usage, much like how Furion becomes an AoE machine if he can use his EX every other turn, Squall becomes a single target beast. He starts doing like 300k every other turn, and he's on the turns that he's not doing 300k, he's doing like 200, 250k. That LD rework, man. Woo. So, you can see here I'm basically just making sure that the boss is locked down, that I'm not doing anything dumb and mistaking Lightning Imperil for an HP silence. Likewise, keeping the Lightning Imperil on, because that's the thing again, the Water Imperil fell off way back. So you see here, let's see here, what did I do here? Did I paralyze them? Yeah, I paralyzed them to let Arciela get a use of her LD to get that HP damage up from the debuff. I do have to say, as much as I am annoyed at this boss for the reasons I've gone into, I do appreciate that there are relatively straightforward and simple ways to get around him. Not beside the Yuffie stuff, Eldnarsh, HP Silence, there are a number of teams. This isn't a quote-unquote restrictive fight in the sense that, you need, I don't know, a callback to the Sephiroth imps needed there were maybe 4 or 5 units overall that got used by most people. With this, I feel there's a decent amount of variety to get through it, and this is not even, if you can beat it legit with Mog or something like that. I know people are doing stuff with that. Kimaria here is actually quite helpful here. So it's less about, some kind of doom saying, this is toxic or it's gonna ruin the game. It just, this boss really was not fun to fight. You probably noticed actually, with most of the bosses I try to do multiple teams and try different styles. With this, I really found that kind of exhausting to do. But that all being said, this team works wonders. The Squall, Arciela, Selphie Rydia calls with a third support, like a Paladin Cecil or Raijin. If you're doing the regular story mission, someone like a Sarah probably works well there. I forget who I actually used. Yeah, it works. It's good times. I think I used Aerith in there. Yeah, I think. But basically, this is a relatively stress-free way to get through here, so long as the one trick is to pay attention, because occasionally you'll get into a situation, and this isn't as hard to avoid if you have or dodge if you have Raijin on the team. but you'll occasionally get into a situation where you'll need to use an HP silence when he already has one on him to refresh it, because for whatever reason he has 2 turns coming up before Arciela's next turn. If you're mindful of that and just can work around that, it's kind of a walk in the park relative to how obnoxious this boss can be. You'll notice here for this part of the fight, I went into Arciela's fast cast stance. I kind of went a little more aggressive because I figured, well, it's in summon, I can drop the paralyze, get a few extra hits, and get the regen from fast cast without wasting any more charges of her HP silence. So we're down to 5%. We should be good here. I'm doing an AA there in case we need an emergency paralyze later in the fight. Yeah, I guess kind of ended up talking over most of this. There weren't too many decisions to be made per se, beyond just like whether I wanted to HP silence or paralyze. For the most part, Squall kind of played himself, and the other two were kind of doing their usual rotations. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's kind of the funny footnote to all of my complaining about this boss is, that said, if you use a team like this one, a shutdown team that you're able to kind of put all the pieces in place for, he does fall over pretty easily, which is nice. That said, if I have to see another Dualahan in my lifetime, it'll be too soon. Anyway, there we are. The Abyss Perfectum Dualahan cleared. Consider liking the video if you enjoyed it. It'll help spread it to others. Consider subscribing, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Adios.